Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Calissa Mahan. I'm one of the program coordinators with iCCaRE. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have two guest speakers. First, we'll have Daniel Lee, who is a biostatistician with Mayo Clinic. He's going to discuss biostatistics in action. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes to give everyone some time to log in. Yes, and happy Friday, everyone.
Prostate cancer is an enemy, killing many men with no mercy. You can check your family history for warning signs. When the love of the world, can you raise up a sound? Or there's a want to fight? We'll stop till we get it right. Men the love of the world, can you raise up a sound? Or there's a want to fight? We'll stop till we get it right. Take good care of yourself, pay attention to your body. Take good care of yourself, pay attention to your prostate. There may be no symptoms of something wrong, no signs, no warning. So know your history as you're growing older. Go check your body and fight from a place of rest as you eat healthy diet and regular exercise to keep a healthy weight. Spend a love of the world, yeah. Can you raise up a sound? Oh, there's a water fight. Go fight till we got it right. Spend a love of the world, can you raise up a sound? There's a water fight. Go fight till we get it right. Pay attention, pay attention. Warning signs. Do you feel pain to your pelvic bones? Painful.
All right, everyone. For those of you who missed it, again, my name is Calissa Mahan. I'm one of the program coordinators with iCCaRE. Thank you again for joining our June webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have Daniel Lee, who's going to discuss biostatistics in action. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have another speaker, Mr. Bademosi, who'll be doing our second presentation coming up. All right, Daniel.
Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead. Thanks everyone for joining Biostatistics in Action and driving the research around there. Introduce myself. My name is Daniel Lee. We've got my bachelor's and master's in statistics So numbers are constantly running in my head. I'm always analyzing life, but nothing excites me more, which you may not believe, more than a new data set. So anytime I can see a new data set, I'm getting excited. The ways that we can analyze it, the ways that we can pull as much information from there, and then share it with the masses. So a blessing and a pleasure to share some of the research and analysis that we've done. So we have a lot of different studies going on, but I wanted to highlight two of the ones that have the most participants, which will be the familial cohort study and also the community research registry. But I am one of the members of Bademosi. So this the data management team. We are looking at all the pilot projects, all the projects in general, and providing that analytical support, trying to help as much as possible in the early stages with question analysis and finalizing your questions that we have, making sure that all the studies at least are allowing a way to connect by asking the same questions and getting ahead of it and trying to come up with new interesting analysis that we can work on personally with Bademosi. So I'm going to go in and look at some of snapshots. I try to minimize as many words on this PowerPoint as possible, so we can always go deeper and I can pull out the formulas and look at any statistical analysis or outputs, but wanted to keep it informational and insightful. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the research registry. So we have, which is exciting, over 2,100 people in this research registry. And looking at it, this is the percentage of people who say they had prostate cancer or not. So 17, 18%, I'm sorry, cancer diagnosis. And this is 18%. And then you can see on my screen, it looks really small, but hopefully you can see it. I'll look at a different screen that I have this, but skin cancer, this is the search bar with 82, other 68, but prostate we see 59. And here we're seeing the fluctuations of age at first cancer diagnosis. So this study has other diagnoses of cancer, other types. So when we look at the familial cohort study, the analysis will be focused, and the age will be focused only at prostate cancer, and we're looking at that diagnosis. But once at least to show the ages that we're seeing in this, we had a person with prostate cancer, diagnosed with prostate cancer that was under 30. So that's where this number is going to come from when you look at another study. But we see the fluctuations. We have a large mix of age groups, a large mix going from 30 up to almost 80 years old. So this was an interesting output that I wanted to show, looking at people and their screening, the recency of their screening versus being diagnosed versus not. But it makes me think a lot of people, when they're saying screening, are they understanding what it is? Because a lot of times they may think they're getting a test and physical and doctor said, I'm good, I don't need to worry about any tests, or they see what it felt like and everything was good, am I good to go? So what we're seeing here though is that people are getting screening recently, less than a year ago. Almost a quarter of the participants did it in the last year. But if we look at aggregating the last year and 3 years and keeping greater than 3 years and never together, it's almost a 60-40 split per se of people who've been tested recently in the last 3 years. A large group that hasn't been tested. We can go deeper about the age group of these participants, but just giving you a high level snapshot of this information. So this was, once again, a lot of studies going on, and I love when we are able to, a question that keeps popping up is, I have cancer, do your brothers have cancer? or do your uncles have cancer, or just the familial association with that information. We've seen a lot of times where it'd be three brothers in the family, all of them have prostate cancer, or someone will have it and then another uncle will have it. So this is showing that based on the data that we have for this research registry, um, that people who were diagnosed, they had an 18% likelihood of someone in their family being diagnosed as well. But people who weren't diagnosed, the same percentage. So prostate cancer isn't respective of person. We do know that family history is a high uh, likelihood, but still, we are all susceptible to this, and getting tested is going to be key. So, as we move on, here is a map of all the participants for the community registry. I can't see how big it is, but Houston should have a little bit over there. I didn't pull the table out, but we see as it continues to grow. I feel like a year ago it might have been maybe not half of it, but we're growing and it's continued to grow, and it's just going to be continual excitement as we see it grow across. Oops. Wrong way. And here is focusing on the Florida region, where we can see the proportion of people completing the survey. So these are highlights of the community registry. Whenever we are having cancer conversations, I'm always trying to pass out this information and opportunities for all participants to complete this registry and be involved. Now we're going to transition to the data set that has the second most amount of participants, which would be the familial cohort. And really, to get away from words, looking at and tracing it in different phases and trying to get as much information as possible around eating habits, lifestyle, behavioral associations in different countries, and just analyzing that and looking at prostate cancer. And really, as well as we've been talking about family, like you have it, does your brother have it, does your uncle have it, do you know? So this is a very rich data set. But looking at it, I'm looking at another screen because it's small, but we see the prostate cancer percentage of 15.9%. It was about 18% for the research registry, and it's always either this low relative, and I don't want to say, but it's either this or higher from all the studies where recurring prostate cancer, we know for sure, is the focus and continues to need to be focused on. But here we see the age, and this the mean and the median and distribution between the age at first diagnosis. And that's why, and as a biostatistician, these kind of visuals, and whenever I'm looking at a data set, first thing I'm doing is looking at frequencies and seeing, do we have any distribution that is worth exploring and writing on and discussing, where we have maybe half the population doing this and another half doing this. But the next step is looking at any outliers that we have. And this box plot will show that to where this participant being 13, 14, 15 is likely an error, but we need to verify. So to go deeper on the age, here is what we have here. Just showing, and the black line that's dotted is the average, and the median will be 67. Will be this dashed line, but we see the numbers and how looks like over 50% were diagnosed under 66. We have 50, around 8 at 50, but this is just showing that association. And honestly, with all the data sets, we have the capabilities to combine everything. Every data set, we should know all the people who have prostate cancer and also the ages. So if not the next presentation soon, we can pull a list and we can know right now how many people do we have readily contact with that has prostate cancer and what are their ages. So, and this was another great visual that I wanted to display and showing the amount of relatives that you have, the risk per se, and how it increases based on how many relatives are affected with prostate cancer. So if you have 4 or more family members, it's almost 100%. And this is, I'm gonna say, this is a small sample size, so I don't want pictures taken. And Daniel said this. This is a small sample size that needs to be continually tested, and that we can be and share a light on that in a powerful way. But this is what the visual is saying based off the familial cohort study and the data that we have. But if you have one family member that has prostate cancer, it goes up to 23% or so, where the likelihood, the risk increases if you have 2 family members. And this was by cousins, uncle, and brother, to say if you have a family member affected. It's not going further to grandparent, and it could, but if I remember correctly, we didn't have any grandparents, but that sounds a false take. But anyway, based off this is off of brothers, cousins, and uncles. And for this, for example, if you have two family members, the risk is around 35, but increases 62%. So powerful information that we can always go deeper with. So we had one person diagnosed with prostate cancer below the age of 50, which was 30, I believe, something like that. They didn't have any family history. This is just that visual showing that. We can also provide another visual because the mean and average is around 66. We can do another visual updating this, so showing that variable instead of 50. But the one participant who did have prostate cancer, younger than 50, didn't have any family history. So I'm going to go to another graph table so I can see. So these are the perceptions comparing people who had prostate cancer, who are diagnosed with prostate cancer, and people who have not been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and showing their behavioral notions around peace, change, affect, scared, manhood. And the questions, for example, is, do you feel that having prostate cancer affects your manhood? Are you scared that you may get prostate cancer? Do you think having prostate cancer is going to change your life? Do you have peace with prostate? I need to verify the peace one, but all the other ones, we're just gauging your perception. How do you feel about it? So we see, let me see there. The looks like the graph is not showing the the color associated with yes or no in a proper way. Um, but it was interesting where the people, so the blues are the people who were diagnosed with prostate cancer. Um, and for example, scared, if you were diagnosed, you were less likely to be scared about it. People who were not diagnosed, they had higher proportion and risk of being scared. So as you see, for every variable, peace, change, effect, scared, manhood, the people who weren't diagnosed, they had the highest trepidation and agreeing with these negative connotations with these variables. So an opportunity for information, an opportunity for maybe pre, this is how you feel, post, do you still feel this way? If not, we need to provide more opportunities for you to have information from us, other resources. But so that concludes the biostatistics in action. Just highlighting these two powerful, most informative when it comes to the amount of participants that we have with data. I feel like what takes biostatistics and people like myself from here to the next level is when we're able to get into the community. I wish I could figure out how many biostatisticians do any community outreach engagements or stuff like that. So the Bible says God's looking for people who have the skill and who has the heart. And the skill for sure in statistics, but also have the heart as well for really touching the community as much as possible. So grateful to be able to do prostate cancer conversations, and these are opportunities to get the community and partner up with different restaurants, me being in Houston, to share the awareness. Let's get screening. What questions do you have? We see that people who are not diagnosed, they're very scared. And this guy, he was saying, man, I'm scared, man. I don't know. Like, it was just not funny to be scared, but just him being honest about the situation. And I'm sure a lot of people were scared. I'm sure everybody was scared if you haven't been diagnosed. But that's why we're here. And here, when we're taking the picture, they're like, hey, Daniel, you get in the middle. And I'm like, no, I'm here for you all. You all are more important to me in this situation. And letting them know that I truly do care about these, and adding value in a way that they've never seen, because people aren't going out and asking, would you like to be in this event, or would you like to do a clinical trial? And we're seeing the same kind of response over and over again. So if I go back to this, let's see. So his dad died from prostate cancer. So when he came, and he had prostate cancer and had it removed, and this is another person who was scared, to say the least. But it's amazing because I try to do the least amount of talking as possible. So it's amazing when people like this gentleman and this gentleman come and add value that way. This was the very first one that we did, and this is the second one that we did, and then the third and the fourth in back order. But a great time. And for this one, this was at so we change it every single time, where it's either a Nigerian restaurant or African restaurant cuisine, Caribbean cuisine, and then a Black American soul food cuisine. So this one was at a Caribbean restaurant, and this gentleman was the pastor of the church that I go to. And from this cancer conversation, and once again, his dad died from prostate cancer, and he's never been tested for prostate cancer. He's 46. He's 47. He has never been tested for prostate cancer. He was 38, but impact overall. But him being the pastor, he was like, hey, can we do something on a grander scale? Oops, wrong way. And that's where it leads to, this is outdated. They wanted to change the date to next Saturday. So it leads to this, where an opportunity to have 100 plus men survey pre and post, evaluation on how the presenters were, being myself, and we are having a speaker from MD Anderson, an oncologist, come who prepared a PowerPoint, and he's all in for community engagement. So it feels like we're going to have a good foundation to do more things like this. But excited, and that is currently how biostatistics is in action uh, at Mayo Clinic and iCCaRE and the day to day. So that's it for me.
Great presentation, Daniel. I've learned so much about like the work that you've been doing with the research registry as well as work that we've also been doing with prostate cancer conversation. So we have two questions from the chat,
Awesome.
more related to the statistical end. So
Mhm.
first question that we have is given the population differences and differences in screening slash detection, how can you statistically pull data from multiple populations globally?
Say the first part again. Yeah.
So So given the population differences and differences in screening slash detection, how can you statistically pull data from multiple populations globally?
And, and maybe the better question is how can we report on those values? How can we digest, ingest, and make sense of it when there are different regions of the world? Statistically pulling it together, I'm going to use Python and merge on the same variables, uh, the same questions that we have. But how can we really make inferences and implement new ideas when they're completely different? It's going to be tough, but at least allows for the initial analysis of just finding differences and seeing what holes we have and seeing if there's symmetric perceptions in general. And then when we see there is something different, now we can ask more questions. Is it region based? Is it, but first on a high level, what's going on? And then from there, we'll go decipher, is this worth reporting on? Because this sample size is 20,000 people and this sample size is 10. That was a random event or a random clinical trial. Not random clinical trial, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. And I hope it answered the question.
Um, yes. So the I feel like you did. We have room for one more question. So the next question that we have is, what tips do you have for data collection to protect data integrity, especially when you have data collection in multiple countries?
No handwritten surveys. Everything electronically, which is not feasible. But that's my first answer. Um, and really, everyone implementing and distributing the surveys having the same, maybe not training, but same awareness of common issues that we have to make sure, okay, let's make sure the complete survey is completed. And we all have to have the same training and same information from there. But
Thank you, Daniel. That was a great point, too. All right, so we do have one comment that we wanted to share with you. So people are giving you kudos. Great job on the presentation. Also mentioning data meets the people it serves, the iCCaRE effect. So additionally, Dr. Zhu had a question. She said, great presentation. She would love to hear about the main challenges in dealing with data from community engaged studies and how you tackle them. Is that a question you could answer potentially now, Daniel? I know I don't want to cut into too much of Dr. Bademosi's time, but I did want to
yeah,
share the question with you.
and say it again, and I'll be quick and I'll respond quickly if you say the question again.
Yes, so great presentation. I would love to hear about the main challenges in dealing data with data from community engaged studies and how you tackle them.
Great question. Quickly, is one of the main challenges is people saying they did the survey, but they really didn't do the survey, or having issues with the link or the QR codes not working. Um, and that's the biggest issue that we have. And really, let's have this moment of time. Let's do the survey, and then we're going to continue because we need this information. But we can talk more.
Okay. If the question wasn't answered, then I'll connect you with Dr. Zhu as well. Anyways, people are mentioning thank you for the great insight. I also do want to thank you, Daniel, for presenting on behalf of the iCCaRE Demos Corps. And I will segue now to our next presenter. So thank you, Daniel. Oops. All right, everyone. So our next presenter is Dr. Bademosi. So hello, Dr. Bademosi.
Can you see my screen?
Currently, not yet.
Okay. Okay. There you go.
Just 1 moment.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have this presentation, and really great work there, Daniel. I like the outreach there. I'll be talking around the use of artificial intelligence and its impact on cancer care, in this case, early detection, and case in point being prostate cancer. And so we're looking at reimagining prostate cancer detection with AI. And the focus here is geared towards achieving health equity in spite of the constraints that we have to deal with early diagnosis, particularly in underserved communities. Equity in detection is the first step toward equity in survival. Research has it that if prostate cancer is detected earlier, survivorship is significantly much higher. First is to make sense of the data that underscores the scourge of prostate cancer. It's the number one most diagnosed cancer among men in 100 countries. Also, there were 1.4 million 1.4 million in number of cases per annum on average, and the trend seems to be getting worse. Mortality rates in low resource regions are particularly high, and this is largely due to late stage diagnosis. Also, we have significantly much lower access to early detection or to diagnosis in underserved populations, and what this leads to higher risk and also leads to much poorer outcomes. And in effect, we're diagnosing too late, too often. And this is where AI can intervene. First is to make sense of what our current screening methods are. We'll look at what the traditional tools are, some of them, and what are the strengths and limitations associated with them. The most prevalent or pervasive or common one is the PSA test. This is widely acceptable. Yes, one of the challenges is low specificity, which means there is high false positives. Doesn't distinguish between aggressive or indolent cancer. And the other tool is the direct rectal exam. It's highly subjective, arguably so. Variable interpretation by different clinicians. Most effective of all will be much more around biopsy and perhaps MRI, but these are late stage interventions. They're costly and invasive and often inaccessible in low resource settings. In effect, the challenge we have is that we're screening broadly but not wisely. So we're missing high risk men while over treating others. So the burden is on the underserved communities in many parts of Africa, the Caribbean, and even low-income U.S. communities. Uh, we see that screening uptake is low, health infrastructure is limited, and also a social dynamic which is more around the cultural stigmas that delay care seeking. And just like the former speaker mentioned, is you could have things like fear as well, or cultural beliefs, but also data on prostate cancer subtypes in Black men is also underrepresented. In fact, prostate cancer in Black men tends to be more aggressive. Yet the risk stratification tools that are used are usually based on non-representative data sets, which are historical data sets. But here comes artificial intelligence. So the question is, what can it do differently? 5 key things is AI can predict risk, can stratify patients, can interpret MRI and biopsy images with radiologist level accuracy, provide personalized screening plans. And that's a significant one, particularly in terms of the fact that AI offers a paradigm shift by enabling personalized screening, and one that not only adapts the individual to individual level factors, but also to local epidemiological trends in the community, in the society as well, in the environment. And also AI can fill workforce gaps, particularly in areas where you have few specialists. And this is broadly some of the things or some of the areas or verticals that AI can help in terms of addressing the challenge of early diagnosis for prostate cancer in underserved communities. So let's imagine a local clinic in Nigeria or in Haiti or some rural Mississippi, powered by cloud-based AI triage system, and one that flags high-risk men early before the cancer spreads. And that's a pointer to the future that we see, the future we are a part of, the future we are building. So data-driven risk stratification, things that AI can do in this case. So we know the machine learning models that are trained on what is a PSA, kinetics, age, family history, or comorbidities, as the case might be. We also do that with imaging data or genomic risk scores when available. This can reduce unnecessary biopsy, according to data, by up to 40%, but can also flag aggressive cancers much, much earlier, particularly in high-risk men. And even from what the data indicated there, that typical scenario is that age, family history, amongst other things, have been a significant factor for screening. But just like in other types of cancer, like CRC, we're seeing younger people turn up with this cancer. The people who would arguably have been classified as outliers, and this made it even more imperative. So the impact is that AI enables targeted screening, reducing both overtreatment and missed diagnosis. So why is AI a game changer in low resource settings? One is the cloud-based deployment. 2 is that there is no need for local radiologists or pathologists, which are usually not available in low resource settings. Three is also the opportunity where it can be integrated with community health workers as well, particularly for screening uptake. And four, which is something we believe very strongly in, which is localized data. So models can be trained with regional data sets, and this helps to increase the relevance and also the trust among the local healthcare community as well. And this is significant in the sense that we don't need to replicate the Western infrastructure in this settings, in low resource settings, but it's possible to leapfrog it, and that's what AI enables us to be able to do. But there are some barriers, particularly when it comes to adapting the models with from a localization point of view. One of it is data quality and representation. We know that most AI models are trained on European ancestry data sets. Two is also the fact that the limited real world data from Africa or Afro-Caribbean populations. Trust and clinical integration it's another barrier in there. There is a fear of a black box scenario, which has led us to move, particularly, I believe very strongly in interpretability, in what we call the clear glass, the clear glass phenomenon in algorithms. Also, we know another challenge is the digital literacy, low digital literacy among some clinicians as well. And last but not least is regulatory readiness and validation. There are much fewer clinical trials validating AI in underserved populations, and that creates barriers to implementation as well. And there isn't also a clear pathway for AI clearance in low to medium income countries. So the solution is ethical AI development, localized data partnerships, that are co-design implementation strategies. In building this ecosystem, data sharing partnerships with local hospitals and cancer registries, that's significant. AI literacy training is important as well in building this ecosystem. Clinical trials, particularly in low resource regions as well. Cloud-based infrastructure for rapid scale and adoption. Patient engagement strategies as well, particularly to overcome both fear and cultural or social stigmas as well. So the key word here is that AI is not a silver bullet, but it's part of a much larger ecosystem, which is a larger shift toward predictive personalized medicine for everyone. So the future of prostate cancer detection with artificial intelligence, it's real-time triage, which is powered by AI, cloud-based follow-up workflows for positive cases, self-screening prompts as well. And this, a lot of these have different adaptation, different applications via mobile health apps, clinical decision support systems as well, particularly in national screening programs. So the future we see with artificial intelligence here is a future where geography and income are no longer key determining factors for survival, but one where access becomes readily available. And so here's my final thought and call to action. Like mentioned earlier on, that AI will not replace oncologists. However, oncologists empowered by AI will detect earlier, treat smarter, save more lives, particularly in places where lives are usually lost because cancer arrives way too late. The clarion call right now is to invest in, of course, localized AI development, which is with local data sets, extend and fund validation studies in on the resourced and underserved regions, and also forge collaboration and build infrastructure that delivers AI as a last mile. And the reason is because early detection shouldn't depend on where you live. It should depend on what we can build together. Thank you. And what I've just done here finally is just to address one core element, just give an example of what's possible in deploying AI in a real life scenario for AI stratification engine. And this creates opportunity where you can have a patient data fed in here, but the personal patient data um, with within the context of the local epidemiological trends, and that's fed into the AI stratification engine. Of course, taking into consideration the population risk trends coming out as an output, the health system constraints, which are usually local as well. Um, and so there's a context-aware screening plan, um, and that's fed into a dynamic feedback loop, and that's what creates some sort of a triage and navigation recommendation. Um, Thank you very much. I yield the time back and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bademosi. We do have there are questions for you in the chat. So
Okay.
I removed your shared screen. Is that okay?
Okay.
Let's put it back. But the first question we had was excited about integration of AI into prostate cancer care across the continuum. For those in LMIC, what are low-hanging fruits that can be addressed that will be impactful? Essentially, where do we start?
Sorry, I missed the question. Could you repeat that?
Yes. Okay. So the first question we have mentions excited about integration of AI into prostate cancer care across the continuum. For those in LMIC,
Yeah.
what are low-hanging fruits that can be addressed that will be impactful? Essentially, where do we start?
Yeah. I think especially for LMICs, where you still have scenarios where 70 to 80% of the prostate cancer presented way too late. Um, I I think the first engagement, of course, when you're talking about, I would look more within artificial intelligence beyond just the awareness here, is data, aggregating data. And that's the first place to start. Um, is to say for every, you want to be able to say that we need some sort of a vertical data in a sense. So if diagnosis is made at hospital X at time Y, um, it will be interesting to make sense of when the patient first presented symptoms and when the patient first presented those symptoms to a physician. Um, and the reason this is important, we want to see what the delta is. The reason this is important here is to understand whether the challenge we're dealing with here is that the patient is turning up late to the physician, or whether the physician is not able to interpret those symptoms or those signs as high risk early enough. That helps in terms of designing an intervention plan in place. I don't know if that answers the question.
I know you mentioned data in your response. There is a similar type of question that says for AI, data is the issue. What are your suggestions for data integrity?
Yeah. So what we have done is, of course, working with a lot of data sets from Europe and also working with a lot of data sets from Mayo Clinic that has helped um, to build validated models. Um, and It's taking that models into places like for Caribbeans or Africa, as the case might be, and beginning to, because what we have in these countries in LMICs is that the data set is fragmented. So with the fragmented data sets, there's a huge challenge. Uh, but from a good place to start from is collaborating with healthcare systems, partnering with them. There is no warehouse you're going to get data in no resource markets. No, going to take a lot of work, which means collaborating with the data collectors, of course within regulatory framework, but working together with them, whether in silos or by aggregating them and getting intentionally gathering those data. We know that changes are happening. There's a lot more electronic health record companies turning up in this market. They become potential partners with access to data. Yes, and that's the best way to go about it. It's collaboration with data collectors, like I mentioned, with other healthcare system, but also technology companies like the EMR companies as well.
Thank you, Dr. Bademosi. We have two additional questions in the chat. So, third question that we have is, how can we change the mentality of some people that are rejecting the various applications of AI and precision medicine because of the fear of losing their jobs?
Because of the fear of losing their jobs. Yeah, and I think that's something that is important. When AI is built and without the physicians being a part of the process, it seems mystical and it seems like a job replacer. But I think this has to be done collaboratively. The level of involvement or collaboration with the stakeholders in this case is the best way we deal with the fear, as it were. When they're part of the process, then they understand that this is an enabler, as against being something that has come to take your job. Rather, is to help you do your job much better. Humans can only be humans. Um, I mean, an example for that is, while a human being can listen to a patient and listen to symptoms and make sense of those symptoms, a machine, an AI model like the one we build, will not only take symptoms, but is able to explore over 150 data points historically in a fraction of a second in real time. So there is no basis for competition, but rather is collaboration.
Comments about how your presentation was a great talk. Another question we have is, are there training for individuals interested in using this? And are there readily available softwares for this? Do you want me to repeat it?
But it seems to be a two-part question. One is, are there trainings, and the second being, are there softwares?
Yes, sir.
Are there trainings for this? Are there trainings that enables people use AI models for early cancer prediction? I'm assuming that's the question, right?
I would say so.
Okay. Yeah, remember this is an evolving field, and that would have to be part of the process. Yes. Within the models that we're building, yes, we're creating a whole curriculum of some sort just about physicians, um, uh, within um, whether it's within a clinical trial process or just from an educational point of view, familiarize and interrogate um, how this platform, the AI platform, works. Now, in terms of questions around, are there software for the, I'm not sure I understand that question. Softwares for early cancer prediction? If that's the question, that's what companies like ours and others are building. Um, they're usually not off the shelf. And the last thing you want to do is use a chat GPT for things like that. Um, that would be a dangerous approach, yeah.
Understandable. All right. Next question we have. These are good questions, by the way. Next question we have is, in your opinion, how can we stimulate or improve the uptake of AI and precision oncology in the LMICs?
Say that again.
So, in your opinion, how can we stimulate or improve the uptake of AI and precision oncology in the LMICs?
A lot has to do with policy. So, if you one of the ways in which from an analysis we've seen is you've got the public policy makers on one hand, you have the healthcare community, the oncologists on the other hand, but you also have the physicians of primary care, which are the referring physicians. It takes an ecosystem to make this work. Um, if if the policy providers, and that's where that makes sense. So the policy providers have to be able to understand and see the value of early cancer detection, especially prostate cancer. Like we mentioned in LMICs, 70 to 80% of prostate cancers are late stage cancer diagnosis, which means you're dealing with end of life care. That has economic impact as well. The cost of treatment is significantly much higher. The loss in terms of the economic output is significant as well. So, from a policy provider point of view, um, the stakes are pretty high. On the other hand, the insurance, the health insurance, the stakes are high as well because the payout is much higher, whether for treatment, which eventually leads to end of life. Um, it's also significantly much higher. Now, by pulling in the stakeholders on the table and the patients at the heart of it as well, that's where the campaign goes in there. And the drive for a referring physician, which is a primary care physician, to want to be able to screen a patient for prostate cancer using artificial intelligence as a triaging tool will be much higher in that sense. Because from an oncologist point of view, oncologist starts dealing with treatment. But half the time, the challenge we deal with is the fact that there is no early referral, early diagnosis. So it's going to be an ecosystem, multi-stakeholder approach to it.
That's a great response. Thank you. Right. I did want to share, so I'll share a comment and then a question, and we'll end our webinar. So, comment is encouraging information from both presenters today, inspiring me to work harder to increase clinical trial participation in my community. I did want to share like both of your presentation, Bademosi, as well as Daniel's, has been very encouraging and inspiring for our audience today. Our last question that we had was mentioning for you, directed to you, Dr. Bademosi, was whether or not if you would be open to give an AI 101 talk to clinicians during September's prostate cancer conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The more physicians we have handling this as well as they handle stethoscope, the better.
Okay. All right. So we would then be connecting with you in regards to that. AI. Thank you. All right. Additional comments or just people of our audience thanking both presenters for today's presentation. So thank you, Dr. Bademosi, for your presentation. Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then for our audience, that concludes our June webinar. So thank you everyone for attending, and we will conclude the webinar with our theme song. So allow me a second. We will play this. Okay, thank you everyone. everyone for attending. This concludes our webinar for today. Appreciate your time and patience. Have a great one. Bye-bye.